Hey there everyone and welcome back to the React.js training. So far our training is going literally very smooth and you have learned quite a lot of syntax and working workflows of the React.js as well as you have learned to handle things like Firebase and APIs and everything. Now it really makes sense that in the final two projects we actually dig up pretty much everything that we have done as well as implement that in how it is being implemented in the real life. So I have created a new repository there or kind of a project there, uh, auth0-github-api. So what is our plan going on there is pretty simple. We are planning to make a simple authentication system that uses login with the Firebase, login with the Google, login with the Facebook, login with the Twitter, as well as pretty much a decent email password login as well. And behind that email login system, the user should be allowed to use a GitHub API. So yes, this makes sense because a lot of project that you see doesn't just really allows you. They first ask you to log in and then you can use the feature. So this is going to be in itself a full-fledged project and will clear up a tons of doubts. And obviously you will be learning a lot of things on the go. Things like local storage, which we haven't touched yet because I wanted to touch it on the go. It's a pretty easy topic when you just go it with the project. Otherwise, it can take a long time. So it's pretty basic. And also we'll be touching about some of the state of the React, like a component will mount and component did mount and all of that. So it's going to be a pretty fun experience. And I would request all of you to work along with me in this project and don't look into the project files that I've given you, although I'll give you the files, but my number one advice would be just work along with me. Okay. So I hope everybody has created the project. It's create react app space auth0-github-api. You can name it pretty much anything. And now let's go into this project. There we go. Now before we go and talk a little bit more about this project, we have a little bit things to do. So let me just show you that as well. Now first is auth0. Now we have used the Firebase, that is no big deal, but if I would be again using the Firebase in this project, that would be repetition. We don't want that. We want to have a authentication system which is auth0. And by the way, this is the most famous authentication system on the planet, I would say. It's being used by a lot of mobile developers and it's pretty much fun and easy to use. Yes, there is a pricing involved, but for our purpose, it's completely free and we don't need to assign the pricing and everything. Okay, so what I want you to do is click on the sign up and create an account there. I already do have an account and this is exactly the same thing that we are about to go with that. We will have exactly the same login and sign up feature there. Okay, so make sure you create an account. Now my account is logged in with the Google, so I'll be just going on with the Google sign in and it's taking a bit, but it's pretty good. Okay, there we go, and you'll be redirected to manage.auth0.com. Now I can see that I have a couple of last logins, new signups, one user, 7 logins, and all of these things. And what you need is, I do already have a client. This is my GitHub viewer, which we'll be creating. I already have a client. What I want you to do is go into the dashboard and click on new. Now give it a name and it will ask you that what kind of application you are working. In our case, it's a single page web application. For example, if I just create a test project there, I need to click on this single page application and then click on the create. It's creating a new project for me. And the technology that we are using, obviously, you know that it's React. So as soon as you do that, notice it says that, hey, you can install our dependency and can work directly on that. That's good news. So we can say npm install auth0. I hope you can see that very clearly. Npm install auth0 lock. This is kind of a lock which allows you to get that same pop-up there and we can just code there. And pretty much everything is being documented here. And once you finish up my project, I would say highly recommended that you check out this at least one resource there. If you want to do it before, that's also lovely, but I would say stick with me right now and you will have tons of time to work and explore onto the documentation on your own. Okay, so that's number one dependency we are working on. Now I would also say that take a look on the GitHub APIs as well. This is lovely API and pretty easy to work on with. We'll be working with a GitHub searcher there, so looks good. Okay, so I hope everybody has created a simple account there on that, and I'll be working on my client again, and I won't be using this test guy, I'll be using with the GitHub. Now, by the way, if you want to go ahead, get onto the settings quickly, let me just show you one thing. I think it's in the settings. Nope, it's not. Yep, it's in the setting. So go to the settings onto your client, and notice what we need is a domain, client ID, and make sure you put in the allowed callbacks URL and allowed logout URL, you put this guy as it is, http://localhost:3000, and same for the logout URL as well. This is very important. Without this, our app is not going to work. Okay, so that's one thing. Create an account and put allowed callback URL and logout URL to localhost 3000. Okay, now let me go back to the client and show you one more thing which we won't be using, but it's a good idea to have that. Now in the add-ons, you can see that you can add a tons of things, like you can also integrate it with the Firebase if you want to use the database of Firebase, but the login system of auth, it's completely possible. You can do so. And there are tons of other things which we won't be touching, but yes, it's a good idea to know about them. Okay, so pretty solid thing in here. And I have checked marked for my connection in here. Go to the Facebook, Google Auth, and Twitter. I have enabled all of them, and that will allow me to use them. Pretty easy. So now let's go back onto our code files, actually in the terminal, and have a few things in here. So we would be installing a few dependencies there. So npm install -- save so that it can save it in here. And make sure I'm already into this file, auth0. So make sure before you do so, when you do ls, you see the JSON file, okay? So let's go there, npm install -- save. And let's just see, we need auth0-log, which is a auth0 module. And we are gonna need Bootstrap as well. Now we will also need React Bootstrap. Now what is React Bootstrap, you might be asking. Now React Bootstrap is nothing, it's just a kind of a JSX syntax of the Bootstrap. So that's all about it. There is nothing much to be afraid of it. So React Bootstrap, that's all what we need. Now I guess this is only things we need right now, but in case we need anything else, we will surely come back in here and we can install them. Okay. And these are not one of these biggest libraries out there. You can just install them within a few seconds. But again, let me just quickly fast forward them so that it doesn't waste our time. Okay, so things are ready for us. Let's do a quick ls to see that yes, we are onto the right track. And let's just launch an Atom instance there. And there we go. Our nice and lovely Atom auth0 GitHub API is there. Let me open up the code. I can make that a little bit longer there. And just like always, we are going to go into the app.js and we are going to do some stuff there. Now, okay, that looks good to me. Now, how we are going to proceed? Now, first of all, I would like to have simply fictitious GitHub API thing. I'll just create a module for it, and I'll think that it is being there, and I'll work on that later on. Okay, so how we can proceed? Okay, now what I can do in here is I want to get rid of all of this. Okay, makes sense. And now I will create a new file there. Oops, this is popping up. Okay, come on, you can go. And let's right click on the source, create a new file. And I'll call my file as GitHub. And I'll later on give you a simple assignment as well for this module reloaders and everything. Right now, github.js is pretty good. And I'll quickly write our very famous syntax that we have worked on pretty much tons of times. And that is going to be component. And that will come up from React. Looks good. And we're going to have a React component there, or basically a class there. We'll call this as GitHub, and we're going to export that as well. So it's going to be really simple, export default GitHub. Okay, save that. And it's going to yell us at like, I am coming from GitHub. Okay, we'll work on this module later on. First of all, we want to implement a simple kind of a login syntax. Okay. Now let's go ahead and take this guy in here. So we're gonna simply say import GitHub from, and let's just have a GitHub there. And we're gonna call this component in here, and that is gonna be simply GitHub, and there we go. And I think we should run our file as well. So let's just call this npm start, and I'm expecting no problem at all. At this point we are very at the beginning stage. Okay, and all the things should be gone, and there we go. I'm coming from GitHub. You're most welcome. Okay, and let's just keep that aside. We don't need you right now. Okay, so what we are gonna do in here, first of all, let's try to have a login feature in here. Okay, really makes sense. And we'll forget about the GitHub later on. We'll work on the API thing later on. First of all, we want a login syntax, and whenever we are able to log in, then only we should see this I'm coming from the GitHub. Okay, that's the goal number one thing at a time, and then we'll take on the things later on. Okay, now let's create a new folder, and in that directory we'll be putting all of our component, and later on we may work on the GitHub. Okay, so create a new folder there, and we'll be calling it as components. There we go, components, looks good. And in the components we will have a couple of things. So first of all, let's work on the header part, because our header part is going to have a nav bar. So let's go ahead and work on that. In fact, what I can do is copy up all the syntax from the github.js, and now I can create a new file in here, and I can call this as simply header.js, or you can call this as navbar.js as well, completely up to you. Okay, and let's use a multi-cursor and call this as header. Okay, looks good. Now in this header, first of all, I want to import my React Bootstrap, and this is going to be a new thing for you, but learning is pretty simple. And if you're coming up from any of the previous courses like a complete front-end developer or anything else, it would be just breeze. Or basically I'm saying is, if you're coming up from any Bootstrap course, this should be breeze. So let's just get a nav bar there, and let's call this as nav, and nav item as well. And make sure the case sensitivity is really important. You can spend days in here just for the case sensitivity. Okay, and that will all be coming up from React Bootstrap. Okay, now finally what I would like to have in here is to render our simple nav bar. Okay, and nav bar will not have much of the things, so let's get rid of this division first of all. And the first thing we'll have is a nav bar. Okay, and let's duplicate that and close that. So we are having a nav bar. Now inside the nav bar we need a nav header, so this is going to be like nav bar dot header. Make sure H is capital there, common mistake for everybody. And let's duplicate that as well. And this is my navbar header. Now inside the navbar header we need a navbar brand, kind of a logo, most of the people that put there. So it's going to be simply navbar dot brand, again a B capital there, common mistake again. And let's close that as well. And this is gonna have a logo. Right now we don't have a logo, so we are gonna just say GitHub searcher there. That is our logo. Now we need to get out of this navbar header there, and then after we'll have some of the nav items. Okay, so inside the navbar I'll create a simple nav, and let's duplicate that and close that as well. Now inside this we will have just one button there, a nav item which says login. So let's have a nav item there, and let's close that as well, nav item. There we go. And It's not gonna have much of the things, but it's gonna say login, and it should be redirected to some link. Right now we don't know what that link is, but we are gonna have an href simply of pound so that it becomes a link. Save that. Now we need to call this header in our app.js, so let's do that, and we will be just calling it, and it is header, but obviously our header is not directly here, it is inside the component, and there we go. And now what we will be doing in here is we'll be simply getting this guy, and this guy is gonna be called in here, which is gonna be header, and save that. And looks like we have some trouble. Okay, let's just see what kind of trouble we do have. I'll just shrink it in here. Okay, so it says module not found, component header is not found. Okay, so it's not finding our component and header.js. Okay, pretty common. Let's just see what we can do to find this out. And okay, so I found my mistake. It was components, and I think this should resolve the issue. Okay, so we have got our login there, but things are not looking that much good. We'll make them good in one of the movie later on. I think this is good. So far we have created one component here, two component here. So I think that's a pretty good move, and let's catch you up in the next video and we'll forward there.